All right, welcome to another Conscious Builder Live. And today we have Stephen Glaze on with us. Stephen, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Stephen is an expert in the exterior home remodeling industry, and he currently owns and operates Smart Exteriors LLC from his hometown in Kansas City. So today we're going to be talking all about siding and getting into some of the differences between them. And actually, before we hit record, we were talking about warranties, and Stephen was bringing up things that are often overlooked. So we'll get into those. Before we get into all the nitty gritty details though, Stephen, I'd love to know, how you got into this industry. I understand it's been basically a lifelong thing, but yeah, share the story about how you got to where you're at right now.
So my dad owned a roofing and remodeling business growing up. Got into high school, started working for him, so basically giving estimates, and went into that. The issue there we ran into, or for me, is it was basically we traveled about a 4-state region chasing hailstorms. Was the business model, mostly doing roofing. And then as I got married and started having kids, decided I didn't want to be traveling all the time. So my dad was retiring. We took over, started Smart Exteriors, and focused on a local business. And roofing is one that's great when there's a hailstorm, but not so great when there's not. And so branched off into other things. Today, roofing makes up maybe 10% of our business. We focus mainly on siding and gutter guards. There's another big thing, but that portion of it. So that's how we just started growing it that way, and focusing on regional business here and doing that.
Yeah, so it's smart. Like business is definitely not easy, and construction is definitely not easy, especially if you're building your business around that. So now, are you focusing more on like homeowners? Are you working for developers? Like how did you structure your business?
It's all structured on homeowners. We don't do any very little commercial. I've done a few commercial roofing jobs, but very little commercial. It's also mostly 99% just residential homeowners.
Okay. And how are they finding you? Like you're obviously doing a lot of marketing.
Yeah, so when I first started, I think like a lot of people, we started doing just it was all about how do I get leads. If I had leads, I can go talk to people, I can get jobs. And so we started off with Home Advisor, just buying leads from Thumbtack, Home Advisor, things like that. It got us jobs and we worked through it, but it was frustrating because you pay for a lot of leads that you don't even get to talk to people and things like that. So I went from that to Google, which I did AdWords, and because the thing is, you have two options. You go AdWords, which is more of an instant gratification, or you can go towards the SEO, which is more of a long-term, before you start seeing any return on that investment. As a new business, you need, if I'm going to put money into marketing, I got to get a return right away. And so we started doing AdWords, and I was spending a lot of money on AdWords and very little to none on SEO. And it was working. I was getting leads, and I noticed at that point my margins went up because I was dealing with different, my competitors were different than they were on like the Home Advisor or Thumbtack stuff. I'm at that level, you're competing with a lot of installers. And then as I went to Google and started doing AdWords, I'm starting to deal with bigger companies. So I got better margins. That was good. But I didn't like the fact that, you spend, maybe $5,000 a month. And then, at the end of the month, you got nothing. I mean, whatever you got is what you got. Next month, you got to do it again because you got nothing to show for what you did last month. So, and I started tracking where my leads were coming from, and I noticed that I was getting a fair amount from search engine, just organic. And so I started investing more and more into the organic. And today, I don't do any AdWords. It's all SEO organic that I spend all my money on, and it's been great, and that's where I focus.
Yeah, it's great. Like it's definitely not easy, especially as a new business coming in there, right? So there's always new companies,
Right.
construction guys. Like the construction industry is really built on small companies, right? It's
Right.
not a lot of big companies. A lot of really 2, 3, 4-man operations. Maybe you get into 10, that sort of stuff. But for the most part, there's only so much work they can do, right? So they need to get out there. They need to get in front of people. So tracking, I think, is just so important. It's funny because I actually messaged one of my team members and I said, "Hey, I want to know where our leads have come from since the last since January of last year,
Right.
because I haven't done it in about probably 8 months or so. I just wanted to see if it's the same thing. We knew that our leads were coming from referrals and project signs. That were like that was our best lead generation. We've never actually spent money on ads or anything, but we're doing larger projects, right? So it's a little bit different for your work because you're in and out a little bit quicker, whereas we're getting, as a general contractor, we're hiring people like yourself
Right.
to do work sometimes. So it's a completely different model. So I think understanding the business that you're in and how many leads you need to generate is extremely important.
Right.
So would you have like any advice? So if there was like, we have a lot of contractors, young guys that are watching, listening to our show. What's some advice to kind of get going, to get the business off the ground at the beginning if they're just starting out?
Well, again, when you're just starting out, you have to go with the where you're purchasing leads or you're doing AdWords, something that you can get just, I put this much in, I get this many leads back right away because it's about survival, right? I mean, they don't have a year to start, seeing a return on that investment. They have to see a return right away so that they can start, pay their bills and keep going. And so you have to start that way. But as soon as you can, you've got to start building that foundation of SEO, because if that's what separates you from all these other guys, right, is that if 3 or 5 years from now, you've got this unbelievable presence. They can't just, it took you 3 to 5 years to build that. And so they can't, if like a salesman was working for you and he decided he was going to quit and go start his own business and compete with you, you want it, if you're doing AdWords and Home Advisor, he can be right there with you tomorrow. I mean, he could set up a website. He can look just like you online tomorrow. But if you're doing SEO and you're getting that, building that online reputation, and you've got the reviews, and you start really marketing and building that up, it's going to take him 3 to 5 years to get to where you are. And he may not survive that long. And so that's, to me, is you've got to start building that reputation online through reviews. Google reviews are the greatest thing in the world, and then also just SEO marketing, so that you naturally come up, and they can't. It's hard for them. It takes them a while to catch up.
Yeah, it's good. Play the long game. You got to play the short game a
Yes,
little bit at the beginning, but you
exactly.
definitely got to be invested in the long game for sure.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get into siding, right?
Absolutely.
That's what we're here to talk about. What are some sidings that you work with in Kansas City and where you're in the area that you're at?
So the main ones today, by far, we install more James Hardie fiber cement siding than anything else. 3 years ago, it was more pre-finished LP smart siding. And the difference, that what has changed in the last 3 years, is just the pricing. So LP smart siding, they have just started doing it in-house, but for the most part, they outsource all of their pre-finish product. And so they're people that they outsource it to raise the prices, and we saw like a 30% price increase, with the
Oh, wow.
LP. And so whereas before it was a little bit less than the James Hardie fiber cement. Now it's a little bit more, and we feel like they're comparable products, so we push the James Hardie. And then outside of that, it usually defaults to vinyl. If that's the issue, is just, okay, this is out of the budget, but we still need to do something, then we can put a vinyl on there. We do some steel siding. Not as much, because it's a great product, but it gets up there where it's the same price as a James Hardie, and we feel like we like that. We like James Hardie a little bit better, so we end up going that way. So it usually comes down to either fiber cement or vinyl.
So what are some pros and cons between all the different, like you mentioned, 4 different sidings there?
Yeah.
Uh, what are pros and cons versus for all of those?
Well, so like when you're looking at fiber cement, the big thing is that it doesn't rot. It's fire retardant. It's the least expensive hardboard siding you can put on right now. As far as, so cost wise, it's a great value. They've got it's a 30-year non-prorated warranty. Their finish on the exterior is 15 years. It's a beautiful product. So there's a lot to like there. They come in, you can get it in lap siding, panel siding, shingle siding, a plethora of trim options. So it's a great option. The advantages that you get from an LP smart side, one of the biggest is that it comes in 16-foot links as opposed to 12-foot links. And so on a certain house, like I'll show you a house later that we did, that it seemed like every wall was like 15 and a half feet long. And so we could do the whole house almost seamless. With LP, if we use James Hardie, we'd have seams all over the place. So longer links. It also, it's stronger. So like if you took a baseball and you hit James Hardie siding with it, it would dent or crack it. Okay. Whereas like on a LP, it's like a piece of plywood. It just basically hit, bounce off. It's almost indestructible in that sense. Um, so those are some of the advantages there. Steel siding, um, the advantages, I guess, would be that they have a Kynar coating you can put on there that prevents it from fading, so you can get the longer warranty on the finish. It gets up there to around the 20-year mark. Um, it I don't know that there's a lot of real advantage. That's why we don't sell a lot of steel, I guess, is because there's not really advantages that they have some advantages over vinyl, but not necessarily over the hardboard sidings, and their pricing is up there with the hardboard sidings. So then you move down to vinyl, and with vinyl, obviously the driver is cost. I mean, it's probably 60% of the cost of James Hardie, and so it's a lot more cost effective. If you stay in the right color scheme, you can get some longevity out of it, and it's got its own advantages there.
So what do you mean by stay to the right color scheme?
Well, it tends to fade, and so everybody wants these dark colors. That's really hot right now. People want the dark blues. Dark grays are really popular, and so the darker you go, the more fade you're going to get. And so with vinyl, it just tends to fade much faster than the other products. And as we get into warranties, that's where we start talking about it. Some of them, the vinyl companies will offer a fade warranty, but when you read about it, what they offer is they'll offer you 30 cents on the dollar to pay, or 30 cents a square foot to pay to paint the area that faded. And so that's not something you really want to do with vinyl, is paint it, because now you've got what you thought was a maintenance-free product on your home that now you're painting and you have to maintain. So we always tell people, if we're going to go vinyl, we need to stay, neutral and lighter, like a neutral gray, or, light tan or white, or, just stay lighter. And then at that point, you'll get the longevity out of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't do a lot of vinyl with the custom stuff that we do, but I've never really had to look into the warranty for vinyl, but that's a really good point, right? That you bring up.
Yeah.
Another thing you mentioned was prorating. So can you explain like prorating and how that works
for example, I'll compare, we do this a lot where we compare. James Hardie has a 30-year warranty on their product that's non-prorated, and LP Smart Side has a 50-year warranty that is prorated. And so what that means is that the longer you get into that warranty, the less they pay. So for example, it might be that year 10, they only pay 80% of the cost to fix the problem or to repair it. Year 15 it's down to 75, and year 30, and so it decreases. So by the time you get to year 30 and year 40, and by the time you get to year 45, I mean, they're paying 2% of what the cost would be to replace it. So if they had defective siding, and all of the siding in your home need to be replaced, and most of those only cover the material, so they would say, okay, you're right, this siding failed, it's year 40, it's a 50-year warranty. To replace all this siding would be, let's just say $10,000. We're going to give you 1,000 of it. We're going to pay you $1,000 towards that. And you would have, so at that point, it's almost worthless.
40 years from now, who knows what the cost is going to be.
Right. The cost has gone up. That doesn't include the labor to fix it. I mean, they're basically just giving you a little bit of money to go away. Whereas like with James Hardie is a 30-year warranty that's non-prorated. So you could be in year 29 and realize that you have a siding defect, and they would come out and they would pay the full cost of the materials to reside your home. And so that's where 30 is,
but not the labor, right?
Right. And most of them, what they'll do is like the first 10 years will be materials and labor, and then after that, it just becomes materials only. But that's much better than just getting 10% of what the cost of the materials would be. So that's where we say at that point, 30 is better than 50, if it's non-prorated.
Yeah. Now, what about like transferable warranties? Like if somebody were to do this and then sell their house, is that warranty transferable?
Most of them are. Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. The I guess on the siding aspect, or sorry, steel siding aspect, we've done steel, we've done all those. Some of the feedback that I've gotten is that it's kind of a pain to work with the James Hardie because you need specialty tools. It's not like working with the LP where it's just like wood, right? You're cutting it
Mhm.
and installing it with regular saws. Have you gotten any feedback like that from your installers? Or does it not matter because they've done so much of everything?
That's the deal. They've got the tools. They do it all day, every day, and
Yeah.
it makes the difference. So that was the pitch originally. Was that LP was like, well, yeah, we're a little more expensive on the materials, but you should save it on labor. And I just haven't found that to be the case. My guys, they want the same price. Either they're like, it's cutting a board, it's cutting a board. We cut this, we cut that. I mean, it's basically the same. Yes, we have a different blade, but we've already got the blade, so it just doesn't compute. And so I pay the same in labor for both.
Yeah. And that's interesting about, the James Hardie breaking as well, because we've talked to people about that as well. You hit it, baseball, hockey puck.
Hmm.
Obviously hockey's bigger up here.
Yeah,
But
right.
that's going to happen, right? And I say the same thing for steel too, right? Because steel can come, and depending on the steel, like you can get whole sheets of steel. But what
Hmm.
happens is that if that gets dented, like you're taking that whole piece off. It's not necessarily an easy repair, right? So
Right. And so with the steel, that's the thing. So it does dent. And so if it dents at the bottom, like you say you have a lawnmower and it throws a rock and hits dents to the bottom and you want to replace that, you got to start taking off from the top and to get to that bottom piece. And in doing so, you're probably going to scratch the one below it. And so you're just basically replacing that side of the house, and so it's not an easy fix. With LP, you can pull out one panel and put it back in. And so it's a little easier to repair than the steel. But LP if you ask me which is the most durable as far as impact, I would LP, the engineered wood.
yeah. So we were talking before too. You don't do a lot of wood siding. Just I know the LP is like an engineered wood, but you're not doing like full wood
Yeah, it's
siding
not
up there very
it,
much.
it's not big in our market at all. Most people are there's not a lot of it out there, but when we do see it, people are just trying to get away from it because they don't want to paint it. The woodpeckers can be an issue
Mm,
with that, and then also just the constant maintenance.
right. So you wrote a book recently too. What was your book about, and
It
how has
was
that helped your business?
it was basically it was about the different types of siding. It was like a siding buyer's guide, and so we go through the different types of siding, kind of like what we've just done, and we talk about the pros and cons and warranties. And um, at first, I honestly I did it. Almost for just SEO purposes. I wasn't sure anybody was ever going to read the book, but I literally I got a call from a guy uh, to come out and look at his siding, and I give him an estimate, and the lady, the wife had said, "Oh, we're going to go with you." Before I even give a price, she's like, "Don't worry." She's like, "We've read your book. We're going to go with you." I was like, it kind of took me back. I was like, "Oh, you read my book," and it positioned me as an expert. And they'd already made up their mind. This is the guy I want to do our siding. And turns out it was like one of the largest siding jobs we've done, in the last couple of years. And then, from that, I got the neighbor across the street and his brother, and so it's done really well for me. It just positions yourself as an expert when you put it in writing.
Yeah. So is this something that you self-published through Amazon, or how
We
did you
did,
do
yep,
your?
self-published through Amazon.
And was it fairly easy to do?
It was, yep. Yep.
So it's kind of like a business card, right? So it's like you said, it sets yourself up as an expert. So once again, for
Right.
any of those
I
contractors,
try to take everything that, it's like you got all this information, in your brain over the years and experience with the different products and even talking with the different manufacturers. I meet with them and get, have them sell me on why, LP is better than Hardie or Hardie's better than LP and all these different things. And then I just take that information and I started transcribing it, writing blog posts, and then take those blog posts and say, okay, let's make it a book. And then, yeah, self-published through Amazon.
that's great. Now, has COVID affected you at all, positively, negatively? You
You
seen
know,
anything in your area?
I think it's been positive. I don't know if it's just people are home and they're looking at their houses, or they've got time to deal with it. Because they're home and they got time to get the estimates and meet with people and just get things done. But we've seen an uptick in business from last year. The same time period, we're up probably about 20%. So it's quite a bit.
That, yeah, that's amazing. So that's good. Is that like industry wide, kind of in
You know
your
what I
area?
found is that it's industry-wide, it's up. It's not up that much. So it's like the pie is getting bigger, but we're also getting a bigger piece of the pie. So it's a combination of both.
Oh, that's good. Now, where do you think the industry is going? Like, are you seeing new products coming down the pipeline,
You
or
know,
where do you
this
think
one
things are going to
product,
go?
yes, there is new products that we haven't talked about, but it's basically PVC siding or some version of it. So it's basically vinyl is kind of PVC, right? But it's just super thin. And so we're talking like a hardboard siding, that's, 5/8 of an inch thick. That's PVC. That's Select by Royal makes this. There's also another one out there that's a mixture of PVC and fiber cement. It's like a combination. It's called Everlast. And those are products that I think once the price point comes down a little bit, I could see them doing very, very well.
Yeah, that's great. There's another product, a company that reached out to us recently called Acre. I think it's Modern Mill is a company that does it, but they're making products. I don't know if they have siding. I haven't got into all the details yet. I'm waiting for some samples too, but they're making products out of rice husks.
Okay.
And you can work with it just like wood. Like you can sand it, you can say it comes in different colors, but you can sand it, stain it, cut it, do all of those things, and it's completely renewable resource, which is pretty neat. So it's fun. It's cool to hear about products like that, and this one coming out, right? And I'm excited to
Yeah.
see kind of what picks up. Like anything, I always tell people, you vote with your wallet. Whatever you buy, there's going to be more of, right? You go to the grocery store, you buy whatever you buy, there'll be more of it because there's a demand for it.
Right. Well, we found like when Select first came out, we did, I don't know, 3 or 4 jobs with it, and it's a great product. It's called cellular PVC. The problem is that any new product is just the logistics and the manufacturing and the delivery and all of those headaches that, the product itself is great, but getting it right. And then if you need another piece, waiting 4 weeks to get it because nobody stocks it, it's all special. So those type of things make it a little more of a hurdle to get there. But once the pricing comes down, as more people buy it, the pricing comes down. I see a future for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So I know you have some pictures. Why don't you share your screen and you can walk us through some of the projects and different sidings that people have been hearing about,
Sure.
but you can show maybe some of the details and different profiles.
Sure. So are you able to see that there?
I sure can.
Okay, so this is a pre-finished James Hardie product we did, and I chose this one because it's got 2 different styles on it. You see, it's got the lap siding, which is pretty standard, and then they accented with the board and batten. So it's smooth panels with these battens on there above the door, and so that is just another thing that people are doing, accenting a lot of the gables with either shakes or the board and batten or different color or something like that. And then
Are the
the other
fascia
thing,
boards and fascia
uh,
boards James Hardie as well, or is that
yes,
different?
everything. Yeah, the fascia is James Hardie, and also the soffit.
Nice.
And then again, this is, you talk about the difference between different styles of materials. So with this, we did the 6-inch trim around the windows, where if you were doing vinyl, it makes it more difficult. You're just basically wrapping the brick mold, and you'll see it's real thin, and so some people don't like that as much either. Um, this is another James Hardie project we did. It's lap siding, and here what they did is we accented the gables in the front with the James Hardie shingles, and the James Hardie shingles are unique from every other shingle manufacturer. So like you get LP's got their version of it, vinyl has their version of it. What makes it different, and let's see if I got a close up, is that basically the keyways in between each shingle is cut all the way through, so it looks like individual pieces as opposed to a panel. Let's see if I can show you.
Yeah, I see I know what you
So
mean.
this one here, you looked at, see how you see that dark line? It looks like each one is an individual piece. And I'll show you when we get into some of the other manufacturers that it's not like that. It looks almost like lap siding if you stand back far enough, because you can't see the lines in between them. But this is, again, another James Hardie where we do James Hardie siding, and then we accent it with the shingles in this little gable here, 6-inch trim all the way around. Sometimes what we'll do with the fascia is we will wrap it with aluminum as opposed to replacing it, and then we put James Hardie soffit. And that's what we did here. This is actually an aluminum wrap on the fascia, and then James Hardie soffit and James Hardie fiber cement siding and trim. And then this is a house, it's James Hardie. We did the whole thing in the shingles. This is a really old house, about 100 years old, and had shake siding, cedar shakes on it. We took all that off and then reinstalled with the, and if you notice the other ones, the shingles were a staggered pattern. This is a straight pattern,
Okay, yeah.
but you can see each individual shingle. Whereas if I did this with LP or vinyl shingles, from this distance, it would look just like lap siding. You would really be able to tell
You
that.
wouldn't see the shadow lines.
You wouldn't see the shadow lines, huh? And so this is a close up of what I'm talking about, how each one is, and it's actually connected, but it's connected up here in the overlap. So this is a panel. It's a four foot panel, but you don't see that each piece is connected because it's only connected a little bit up above where the overlap. So
Yeah.
here, this is cut all the way through. This is cut all the way through.
Those little details that you don't think about till you've been working with
Right,
it, right?
right. That's the another house there with the. So this is a unique house. This is the one I was telling you about. This was a historic home that, and you can see this is what I was talking about. Each one is like 15.5 feet. So we did LP smart siding on this. For the siding up in the detail up in here, we actually use several different products. And I'll show you, we got an AZEC board, we got vinyl bead board, and then FIPON crown molding that we had to use to recreate all of this, because this was all done. They wanted to kind of basically recreate the original. It was all done out of wood, but they wanted to do it in a way that was maintenance free.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way we could do that was by combining a bunch of different products. So the siding here is pre-finished LP smart siding, lap siding. And then when you get up in the detail, so we've got a AZEC, which is a PVC board that goes right above the siding, and that's white, so it came that way. Then this vertical bead board, that was basically a vinyl soffit material that came in a gray that we got. So it's color through, maintenance free, don't have to worry about that. And then the FIPON crown molding, which is basically like a foam molding that we put up here, and then LP soffit, and then wrap the fascia with aluminum. So there was a lot went into this project, and these corbels were just the original wood, and we had them refinished and painted.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a big
Really good.
project we did there. So this is another LP smart siding, but we're getting into what a lot of people want, is where it looks like it's stained, or this is called a duotone, where they basically they paint it once and then they scrape it so that the high parts only have one coating on it. Then they spray it again, and so it gives you that look of almost two different colors, like a stained look. And so this is the one product that we sell still of the LP, because it's the only, you can't get this in James Hardie. You cannot get that duotone stained look. And so people that want, I've got one now, this guy has a log cabin and it's real wood, and he had hail damage to it. And so to have it refinished, this company wanted $40,000 to basically acid wash it and then restain it, his log cabin siding. And then they told him that every 3 to 5 years, you got to spend another $10,000 to $12,000 to stain it again, because that was the maintenance on it. And so he wanted to get away from that. And so we sold this duotone that looks stained, and it comes with the 30-year warranty on that finish from Wausau Diamond Coat. So we do some of that. This is another one of the duotone. It's supposed to look stained. It's like a maple. That's actually LP smart siding, came pre-finished just like this with a 30-year warranty on it. Some of the things you run into with the duotone is that they don't make caulking or metal necessarily that matches it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can run into issues where you're trimming it. So you want to make sure you trim with like a solid color, so that you can always have something to match to. Like, like around these windows, you want a caulking that matches. So we had to make sure that we trimmed it. We wrapped these with aluminum brown that we could get caulking that matched that. And then we could do that, because sometimes that's an issue. If you try to do everything this color, if you don't have caulking or metal, when you get to edges and things like that, it can create an issue.
Yeah, that looks really good though, because a lot of times I find with like those man-made products is that you can tell that it's man-made because you can see the same pattern over and
Yeah.
over again, and it doesn't stand out on that.
No, it's great. We like again, this looks like a log cabin, and you won't have to. If you stain this, I mean, that would be a nightmare. In 5 years, it would all be washed out and look terrible. But this has got a 30-year warranty that should look just like that for 30 years.
Mhm.
This is the LP shake, and you can see the difference. So you can see the staggered, but as far as the keyways and in between, you don't really see it. And this is close up. If you backed up, it would just look like a squiggly lap siding. And that's why we don't. Even if I'm doing LP, if they want shake in the gable, I go with the James Hardie shake because there's just nothing else looks like it other than real shingles. This is one that we did early on. This is the whole house. So this is LP shake, and if you look at it, it looks like lap siding. I mean, you cannot see the keyways really at
Right.
all. And so I didn't. I this at this time the LP was less expensive, and the homeowner decided that's what they wanted other than the James Hardie. But I wish we would have done that in James Hardie because I think it would look a lot better like that other one. This is just a standard steel siding. Um, the dark color, but that has a Kynar coating on it, so it'll last 30 years. It won't fade. It's like the same thing they put on. I know you're up there, but do you guys have Pizza Hut up there? Red roofs.
Yeah.
So those red roofs, they don't ever fade. They stay that way. They don't turn pink, and it's because they have a Kynar coating on them. So with the steel, they can put that on the siding, and it keeps it from fading. Um, so dark color we did in steel. So with steel, there's a product called Manufacturer Quality Edge, and they are getting into doing some of the variegated colors where it can look like real wood or stained wood, and there's two of them. There's this Quality Edge has got one, and you can see it looks, like a wood grain pattern. And then the other one is longboards, and it's really pricey. So a lot of the time they're doing it on commercial, but we're starting to do it a little bit on as an accent on residential. But it looks really good. Looks just like stained wood.
Yeah, we did
And
longboard only once, and it was like 7 years ago. We haven't done it since.
yeah,
Nobody's requested it since then.
it's pricey. It's pricey, but so to do a whole house would probably not be feasible. But as an accent, it looks pretty good. So this is one we did there, and they liked it. Um, Again, vinyl. It just it looks like vinyl. Um, like again, because you can't put trim around. I mean, around it, so you just wrap the brick mold. So you got these little bitty trims, whereas that would look much better if we did like a 1x6 all the way around to kind of fill that up. But sometimes that's just what the people can, what the budget calls for. With vinyl, you can do vertical board and batten, and I do like this better than the lap siding on vinyl because you don't really have the seams except for every 10 feet. Yeah, going up, you put a seam there, but it looks pretty good and holds up well. We've done that before where we've done the vertical board and batten vinyl on the sides and back, and then like a lap siding LP on the front. Which is pretty common here, where people will do that with wood. They'll put the lap siding on the front and then vertical panels on the sides and back. But we just did the vinyl on the sides and back with those vertical panels, soffit, and turned out pretty good. The one thing about this is you're limited. If some people don't like this board and batten, they don't like how close they are. Because like when you're doing wood board and batten, a lot of times it'll be more like 18 inches apart. That rather than this is like 10 or 7, but depending on what manufacturer you go with. But the problem is with vinyl and steel, when you get that wide space in between, it can oil can or buckle and start to not look good. So they have to keep them close together. So that's one limitation that you have if you get away from your standard real board and batten with either a fiber cement or an engineered wood or something. Again, this is the vinyl shingle, and you can see that it's just grooves. It's not cut all the way through, and so when you stand back, you don't really notice it as much. See if I got like here. This is vinyl shake, and again, if it wasn't for the staggered pattern, it would almost just look like lap siding from a distance because it doesn't have the keyways like the James Hardie does.
All right.
Let's see if I think that might be it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
those are the pictures I got, but give you an overview of what's out there.
Yeah. So you can stop sharing your screen now.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great overview because I never even thought about that keyway. We haven't done a lot of that shake style, but it makes a lot of sense from aesthetically from a distance. And same with the caulking option, right? That's something that is often an afterthought. Oh yeah, what color caulking do you want? Right. So
exactly.
Those are all the little details that are really important when it comes to ultimately the end product of a project. So that was great. I was learning from that.
Yeah, with James Hardie, the one thing about it with all of their colors that they have caulking and they have metal that matches it exactly. And so when you need to flash something like along a roof or whatever, you can get it the exact same color as the siding. And when you need to caulk next to a window or anything like that, it all matches. It's all the same color, and so it makes it really nice.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Stephen, thanks so much for being on the show. If people want to get in touch with you or find your book, how do they get in touch with you, and where can they find your book?
Our website, smartextpros.com, you can go on there and download a free copy of the book. And then also, that's a great way to contact me is just through the website.
Love it. And you're giving the book away for free, so even better.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Casey.